And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we are talking about Lonzo Ball. We're talking about his impact last season and if it was a good thing or a bad thing that the Chicago Bulls extended him last season. And so, before we go ahead and jump into it, I first wanted to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest was zealous, slam dunks in games. And so, in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So make sure that you hit that subscribe and you hit that like button and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the content for today. And so we're talking about Lonzo Ball. We're talking about his impact. We're talking about if his contract extension last season was a good thing for the Chicago Bulls. And so let's start with his impact, because I think that he was really an anchor for this team on the offensive end and the defensive end of the floor. And so starting with the offense, I think that Lonzo was terrific as far as really getting the fast break started. I think that his superpower is being able to get the fast break completed without having to put the basketball on the ground. And so I think he was terrific at that. He definitely did not miss a beat coming back from the injury. Every time that he got the basketball off of the rebounds and things like that, he was looking to push. And that was huge for this team, especially for a team that really wanted to go with a new offensive plan. We saw that they were, getting up and down the floor much quicker, obviously getting more three-point shots up and things like that. So Lonzo was huge for this team in transitioning to that new offense. Next, I think that he was terrific as far as making sure that the half-court game didn't get stagnant, because we know at times Vooch would have a mismatch. Lonzo would make sure that he would get the basketball to him. And I also think, too, Lonzo, his basketball IQ and kind of directing traffic out there, making sure that we got some more player movement along with the ball movement, which was huge. And so really he was a quarterback out there alongside of Josh Giddey, alongside of Coby and Ayo as well. So he was huge that way. And then next, on the defensive end, he was absolutely an anchor. If you watch the games, Stacey King would say it all the time. It seemed like that there were 5 Lonzo Balls out there, and it really was, because there were times where he would come from behind, he would get a block shot. He was terrific at playing the passing lanes, and so he would get steals that way. He also was terrific at knowing when to go on double teams, and he was excellent as far as making rotations as well. And so, again, he was almost like just the quarterback on the defensive end as well. So his impact was just outstanding for the Chicago Bulls when he was out there. And I think it's more, the impact was more than what you saw with the numbers. And so when we look at the numbers, you're going to see a player and you say, well, I don't think that he was really that much of an impact. But like I said, he was. And so when you see he only had 7.6 points a game, he only got 3.4 rebounds a game, 3.3 assists a game. And then you see the field goal percentages from 34.4%. Then you see from the field 36.6% there. And then in 22.2 minutes of play and only 35 games played, still, I mean, those numbers are really not the indicator of just the impact that Lonzo Ball had out there on a given night when he was out there. And so, with that impact, that leads us into just the next point with Lonzo and just the contract extension and if this was a good thing. And so I think that two things can be true at the same time. I think that it was a good move for the Chicago Bulls, and it also, too, is a little bit of a risk, because when we look at when Lonzo signed the contract extension, it came at a time where it was right around the trade deadline. And I think that there were reports saying that there were teams that were possibly interested into Lonzo Ball. So, the Chicago Bulls could have moved him. They could have got draft capital for him, but they elected to go ahead and they extended him. Now, with the extension, there's the plus side of this. And this is why I think it was a smart move, because you extended him to a 2-year, $20 million deal, and it's a team option on the back end of this deal. So the first year, 10 million, the next year is going to be 10 million as well, but it's a team option, meaning that the team can opt out of this and he can become a free agent. Now, we just talked about the impact that Lonzo Ball had. and he missed, the rest of the season with a wrist injury. This is why also that, the field goal percentages were probably down as well. He had hurt the wrist earlier in the year. And I definitely think that that certainly impacted him, as far as trying to get a rhythm and trying to shoot the basketball and be effective that way. And so I think that if Lonzo comes back and he's playing much like he did a season ago, he's able to play some more games. I think that you actually could really increase the value of him in a trade if you want to possibly explore that option. So I think that, yes, it is a bit of a risk because you don't know what's going to happen next season. But banking on the fact that he's going to come back, he's going to at least, give you 35, and I think he's probably going to give you some more next season, but we'll see. I think that you could be in a good situation where you still could move Lonzo Ball and you could ultimately get some draft capital, or you could throw Lonzo Ball into a possible trade and get back some more pieces, depending on which way the front office wants to go. And so next, is it a risk? It can be a bit risky for the Chicago Bulls in this sense, because if he does come back next season, he plays in less games, then obviously, the teams that maybe were interested, they're not going to be picking up the phone trying to get Lonzo Ball that way. So then the trade value, maybe it dips drastically there. But I'm betting on the fact that Lonzo is going to be available, for at least 35 plus games. And I think that that is still going to be enough to get him moved if you need to. I think that, for an example, if there's a team like Minnesota, right, and they can give out, a second round pick or something like that to get Lonzo, I think maybe if they feel like that they're close, they would go out and get him, because with the contract, really, it's almost like you're getting a 1-year rental, because you have the option to pick up that second year if you want to. And if you do pick up that second year, it is going to be just $10 million. And that is a very, movable contract. I don't think that that's anything now in today's NBA. So I think that that's why it's a win-win for, whoever gets him. Or the Chicago Bulls if they want to move him. And I think another scenario too to think about is that with all the noise around Vooch, and one of the things that we talked about with him and the possibility of him being moved, is it a possibility that Lonzo could be maybe included in a deal to help, maybe facilitate that? Like, I think that that's something that is realistic. And I think because of the contract that he signed, it makes it definitely something that could happen, because it's certainly a movable contract. When you look at Vooch, his $21 million that is expiring, you look at the fact that you're getting Lonzo, and again, it's $10 million this year, but then or this upcoming year, and then it's going to be, a team option there. So you can simply move on. And so let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking here. Do you think that, look, the Chicago Bulls will, go ahead and ultimately move Lonzo Ball this offseason? Do you think that they're going to keep Lonzo maybe into the trade deadline next season and then try to move him? Or do you think that, look, they're going to maybe keep Lonzo around and just have him continue to be an impact like he was this last season? Because I do feel like he was an impact player for the Chicago Bulls. He did not necessarily get in the way of just the youth development as well. And like I said, to be an impact player, you don't necessarily have to put up huge numbers, but I think that his leadership, his basketball IQ, it was huge. And I think that it definitely fits with what the Chicago Bulls are building. And I also think that when you look at what AK had been talking about recently about this timeline and things like that, Lonzo Ball is actually one of those players that does help you as far as speed that timeline along, because he's a younger player. Yes, he's been through the injuries, but also too, he does help this team, and he fits in with what they're trying to do from an offensive standpoint. And defensively, he certainly helped this team out a lot as an anchor there. So let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. The Chicago Bulls obviously face a major decision with Lonzo. They always face a major decision going into the offseason, so we'll see what they do. Let me know what you guys are thinking. And as we always say, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.